Hey y'all, and welcome to Words with Chas. This is a segment called I'm Stronger Than, and this is to recognize all the individuals who are stronger than anything that they are battling. With me today, I have my sister Nalia Green, who is also my co-host for I'm Stronger Than.
Hey everyone. Thanks, Chas. I definitely feel honored to join Words with Chas on this segment. I'm stronger than. I hope to contribute a lot of insight on lupus awareness. So I'm glad to be here.
I have with me my sister, a fighter of lupus in her journey for going on 10 years, Jaelyn Green. She's with us today. Thank you for joining us as well. So, according to the Lupus Foundation, there are currently 1.5 million Americans that are affected by lupus. And there's 16,000 new cases every year. So I'm very glad to have you with us here on our podcast to talk to us a little bit about what lupus is and what the journey looks like for people because it's very different across the spectrum, right? When we talk about lupus, what exactly is lupus? Because a lot of people have misconceptions of what lupus actually is.
So, lupus is pretty much a autoimmune disorder where the body's immune system is attacking our healthy cells. They're mistaking our healthy tissues for foreign bodies, like you're being sick constantly. It pretty much can affect multiple organs, but in my specific case, mine affects my kidneys.
That must be very hard thing for your body to be going through because it's almost like it's fighting itself, right?
Mhm.
Tell us exactly like how did you find out that you were diagnosed with lupus?
So I was constantly sick, just low energy, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to go anywhere, had no appetite. I lost a lot of weight. My hair was thinning out. Um, and that kind of caused me to seek some medical attention. It took almost a year, maybe a little longer, for me to be diagnosed with lupus because it is confused with a lot of other diseases.
When you're saying that like you were very low energy, was it just something that like happened like just at the snap of a finger, or did it like gradually get to that point where you just had a loss of energy?
It gradually got to that point, and some days I would get a burst of energy, and other days it would be staying in bed all day long, feeling nauseous, sick, throwing up. No medicines was
Mm.
helping me. It got bad. Yeah, and then I seen multiple doctors, did multiple tests, multiple blood work tests, x-rays,
Mhm.
MRIs, a lot of different types of tests. And then finally, one doctor, she ran a complete urinalysis test on me and found that I was spilling too much protein in my urine.
Mm.
And she referred me over to the McLean's Children and Hospital in Temple. So I had to undergo a kidney biopsy to find out the severity of my lupus at that. I was
Mhm.
just 15 years old.
Wow. I know that it sounds a lot on your body, on you physically and mentally for sure. And so I definitely admire your resilience and your strength to get through all that, especially at the age of just 15, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Which for someone that young, you being
And
so young, you were only 15 years old, like when you found this out, like that must have been super hard because thinking that you have a lot of life to live moving
Mhm.
Yeah.
forward, and you
Mhm.
being so young, being diagnosed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, how lupus can be misdiagnosed. I'm pretty sure that was very frustrating, going through all these motions and all these feelings, and everyone's telling you, oh, we don't find anything, and then you finally have that one doctor that listens to you and your body, and
Absolutely.
that I'm sure that was such a relief for you to finally hear that, okay, I'm not just crazy in the head.
Right, right. Yeah,
But then once you receive that diagnosis, it's like, wow, finally, but what does this mean? And I'm sure you were very
right.
scared in that moment. So, like, can you tell us how that felt in the moment when you heard the diagnosis?
Immediately, my mind went to, I have cancer. It's a wrap. I
Common.
have cancer. I'm gonna have to get on chemo. I'm gonna have to do radiation. All my hair is gonna
Mm.
fall out. That's just immediately where my mind went to. I just thought, like, am I gonna have surgery? Do I need to, like, I didn't know what to think. And that was the first thing that came to my mind was cancer. But, kind of, my mom kind of explained, you don't have cancer. This kind of runs in the family. It's something that is not curable, but it is definitely treatable. You can still live your life. You can still do the things that you want to do.
Mhm.
just with some restrictions. Not a lot, but definitely some lifestyle changes and some restrictions.
So you mentioned that it was hereditary. So when you say like hereditary, like does it run in the family? Is this something that, goes back to generations? Because, a lot of times with hereditary diseases, we don't really know how far it runs back. So we don't really know that it's going to affect, you or your children or it affected your grandmother or your dad or, whoever the case may be. So with it being hereditary, how far does the lineage go back and how did you kind of come to find out that it was something that ran in our family?
So speaking with my dad, it's definitely common on our parental side of the family. His mother, his biological mother, actually had it, but hers did not affect her kidneys. Hers affected her neurological system. It was really bad on her nervous system for her. She was very, very, very sensitive to sunlight. All of us pretty much are, but when it comes to like your nerves and affecting your skin and stuff like that, it just can leave you welching. And the butterfly rash, the common butterfly rash, it just affected her skin and her nervous system really bad. And it's actually what she passed away from.
So
So
there's different
she,
types of lupus.
correct, right, right.
And so, Chas, when you mentioned, and Jay as well mentioned it being hereditary, I have learned that experts don't necessarily know for certain what causes the lupus. However, research has shown that hormones and genetic and environmental factors play a pretty significant role. And so, how you mentioned the sunlight and those environmental factors, those play a big role in the genetics. Statistics show that lupus does predominantly affect like more women than men, especially
Hmm.
among Black and Hispanics versus their counterparts. And
Right.
then in particularly, African American women have higher risks of getting lupus. And then it also mentions that African Americans and Hispanic women tend to develop it at a younger age and have more severe symptoms. And so it kind of, I guess, validates and explains, the fact that you were diagnosed at such an early age.
Yeah, like
What were, I know you mentioned earlier, like you touched on a few of the symptoms that you have with lupus. What is that? What are the symptoms that, you found to be very triggering or, for it to escalate or for you to have flare ups? What do some of those symptoms look like? And then also what is a flare up and what does that look like?
yeah, so a flare up is pretty much like when our body is truly, truly attacking us. We will kind of develop those butterfly rashes, as I mentioned, around our face. Our legs, our feet will swell. Sometimes my fingers will swell. Sometimes my fingers will turn purple. We'll
Mhm.
get fevers, just feel weak, really weak. Don't want to do anything, very much lazy, very much tired. Just kind of like a common cold or a common flu times two.
Mm,
Mhm.
And usually it just depends on like what happens. Like if you're exposed to the sun for too long, that can cause a flare up. Being out in the cold can make your joints hurt, make your fingers purple, feet swell. It's a
Mhm.
lot of different common factors that can cause a flare up. A lot of different symptoms that come with the flare up. Every flare up is
Mhm.
different. Not a lot of flare ups are the same. I could one day, one flare up, I could have a fever, and next flare up, I wouldn't have a fever, but I'm still feeling very much lazy, very much, I wouldn't say depressed, but very much down and out and not like myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, each flare up can be different. They're not typically the same, but those are really the most common symptoms when it comes to a flare up, though.
with the flare ups and how it attacks your body, what would you say the treatment process is? Or, once you experience the symptoms and then you were diagnosed with lupus, how did the treatment process come about? Or what does that look like to people who have lupus?
A lot of medications, that's for sure. Since I was diagnosed with lupus, I been on tons and tons of medications. It's kind of like a trial and error period. I've been finding out I'm allergic to a lot of medications, had to stop those, find a replacement. But one of the most common medications used within the treatment of lupus is a steroid called prednisone, which typically help with the flare-ups. And then there's also another one that's very common called Cellcept. So those are usually two of the main medications that are used within the treatment of lupus. I've had times where I've had to go to the hospital and get a steroid
Mm,
infusion for a flare up. So sometimes flare ups can be that severe where you do have to get admitted into the hospital and get those IV treatments to help your body calm down and stop it from attacking itself. But yeah, it's a lot of medications that we're typically on, including blood pressure, cholesterol, a
mm.
lot of different medications to help us with our daily management of our lupus.
Yeah.
So
So, with addition to, the medication treatment and management to manage the lupus and your flare-ups, I know you mentioned that you have end-stage renal disease. And so, what does that look like for you? Because I know with end-stage renal disease, sometimes that's when the kidneys shut down on you. And a lot of people go through dialysis. Is that something that you are experiencing now or a part of your journey?
Yeah, so end stage renal disease, I was diagnosed with ESRD June of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. It
Mm-hmm.
was crazy. It was hectic, especially having to go through that experience semi alone, I guess. Couldn't have nobody in the ER with me. Had to wait for a COVID test to come back before anyone could visit me. So one, for me particularly, it was scary. One, hearing that, hey, you're gonna have to start dialysis. Two, having to do that alone, because we were in the middle of a pandemic. And it just felt I was scared, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Been on dialysis for 5 years now, so become accustomed to it and the lifestyle, managing it day to day. My kidneys shut down. Dialysis is my kidneys now. This is
Mm-hmm.
how I stay alive, how my body cleans itself. So yeah.
So you mentioned your kidney shutting down. So are you saying that at this point in time, your kidneys are at a zero, functioning at a 0%, or do you have a little bit of kidney function?
So I still have a little bit of kidney function left. It's just not enough to manage on a day-to-day basis, not enough
Okay.
to withstand. So I do still make a little bit of urine,
Mm,
which equates to a little bit of kidney function left, but
okay.
I would still need dialysis to help that boost to keep
Mm-hmm.
my blood clean and my body clean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I mean, I do remember back whenever you were diagnosed with, end stage renal disease, and it was very hard because I know that you, in that moment, probably had to deal with a lot of emotions by yourself, especially having to go through new things like going to dialysis and not having anyone there because you had to
Right.
attend everything by yourself. So, what were some of the emotions that you were experiencing having to also, you were also diagnosed with, lupus, and then now you're diagnosed with end stage renal disease. How did that combine with, it was during COVID, family couldn't be there, when it comes to your mental health, like with all those things going on at one time, how did that really, look for you?
Well, my top emotion was like I was scared, I couldn't have
Mm-hmm.
my family by my side with me. Everything was new. And, I had to undergo a surgery just to get access for dialysis, which honestly wasn't really nothing new for me. I've undergone surgeries, well, minor procedures, but this one would have probably been like a major procedure for me. I'm having to undergo anesthesia. And this is, I think, where my anxiety really came into a major play with me, and depression kind of started settling in as well. So yeah, it was a new process and it was overwhelming to say the least.
Would you say that now you have a good support system through everything? Because we know, a lot of times support from our family and our friends definitely help us get through those hard moments and those hard times that
Absolutely.
we have.
Definitely say my support system has came through, showed up, and showed out.
Does it still affect you now, already having ESRD, with you already being diagnosed with lupus? Are there any other parts of your body that are affected?
Yeah, so weather changes. Being in Texas, the weather changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
plays a major role into one, getting flare-ups, two, how my body reacts to the weather changes. Going from hot to cold, cold to hot, being out in the sun too long will get the butterfly rash. You know, definitely major environmental one would be the weather changes that would affect me and cause those flare-ups for me.
Mhm.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of just want to reflect on, and I was there too when you got first diagnosed with lupus. And, for us, I'm gonna speak for me, for you being so young, it was truly an experience that, one, I never thought that we would have to deal with in our family, especially because it was such a disease that doesn't really have a cure. I never really thought that we would have to deal with someone in our family that was really diagnosed with something that was like, a disease or almost cancer like, or there's no
Mm,
cure for. And so I remember you coming down to visit me one summer in Houston at my apartment, and you like were just drained. You were
Yeah.
tired, like you just wanted to lay down in the bed all day. You didn't want to get
yeah.
up. And I was like, this is not like her. She's
Mm,
active, like she wants to go. Something's wrong. Like, but you didn't know, right? And
Mhm.
so I remember calling mom and telling mom, hey, something is seriously wrong. I think something is seriously wrong. Like, have her test came back. Like, it has to be something. Like, and if that doctor can't answer, we need to go find somebody else to get the answer because this is not like her. And I think that when it did come back that you were diagnosed with lupus, it was a hard pill for me to swallow. Being your big sister, and I think I talked to Na, like, what do we do now?
mm,
Like, how do
mm,
we support her? So I think for us, it was also very hard as a family member
for sure.
to really figure out how do we support you the best in going through, what you have to go through, because not only we're not walking in your shoes, but also too, we want to support you in the best way that we could. And I think that it was super hard for us, or I know it was for me, to just
Mm,
see you having to go and transition from having such a normal life to having to now you have
make
to pick up and
sacrifices.
readjust everything and
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with lupus, a lot of people may not have a support system like you have.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was a hard thing or it is a hard thing for any family to have to go through when we find out that a family member has a disease that is not necessarily, it's not curable, it's treatable, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not curable, so it's like you have to have a treatment. So in the end, what is the overall thing that will help treat lupus for the best?
So for me, it would be a kidney transplant.
Okay.
That would put me into remission. Um,
And I'm
at
sorry,
least,
when you
yeah.
mention remission, what exactly does that mean? For those
So
that
that
don't
would
know.
be me coming off of, like me getting a new kidney would equate to me coming off of dialysis, not having to go to those treatments 3 times a week, not having to, experience the things that I've experienced in dialysis. It would just mean like a kind of a fresh new start on,
Okay.
life, not having to travel without making those dialysis accommodations. You
Mm,
know, it would mean a lot, but
okay.
that would be a treatment plan as of right now, a working goal to put me into remission for the dialysis end of it.
I don't remember when we were talking about earlier dialysis. Did you explain like exactly what dialysis is? Because I know me, when I heard that you were going like on dialysis, I was like, old people, like that's what old
Yeah.
people do. Like you go on dialysis, what? Like so
It is.
when you say dialysis, like I had the perception that like that's only old people do that. Like
Yeah, it's a common
yeah,
misconception in the medical field that dialysis equates to, older adults and something that you won't necessarily see anyone else on, but
yeah,
an older adult. And I see that often too within my hospital and even other people that I talk to, I pretty much tell them like my sister, she's on dialysis and they're like, "Your sister, how old is she?" And I'm like, yeah, it's a very real thing. It's a common misconception that dialysis doesn't equate to anyone that's young or any disease that a young person can have. It doesn't
Right.
register in people's mind that it's possible for someone your age or even younger to be on dialysis.
Right.
And a kidney disease can affect people even younger than you.
And to make matters worse, my technicians in dialysis tell me all the time that I'm the youngest patient that they've ever had. So it's
Typical.
very uncommon.
Yeah, with that, I guess, common conception that dialysis is for older people, I'm pretty sure like a lot of people your age also have that initial reaction. If they were to hear like, I'm sorry, but we have to start you on dialysis, it's kind of triggering and it's like, whoa, we have to do what? And they get
Right.
scared of the whole entire process in general. Even just looking at the machines, you're like, whoa, what is that? What's going on here and all that. And so, can you explain, like, because I know a lot of people probably hear dialysis and get scared, but can you explain and kind of clarify the process of dialysis and what exactly happens when you go to dialysis and what the machines do and things like that?
Yeah, so dialysis pretty much cleans my blood because my kidneys no longer do so. And like I said, I don't make as much urine as a normal person does. So they are also getting those fluids out of me as well. So with dialysis, you can have two access sites. Usually, when people are first diagnosed with dialysis, they have to get an emergency access, which is usually like a catheter in your chest, which is what
Mm,
the procedure I had to undergo when I was first diagnosed. So you have one tube that comes out, it pulls the blood out of you, and then it goes through the machine. The machine cleans your blood, it removes all the fluids, and then it comes back to the other
mhm,
side, returning your clean blood back to you. There's two types of dialysis. You can do peritoneal dialysis, and then which is at-home dialysis. And that access site is actually through your stomach. And then there's hemodialysis, which is what I do, which is in-center dialysis. I have a team of nurses and technicians who take care of me on the 4 hours that I'm on treatment. The other access site would also be the fistula, which is what I have, which is how they access this is how they access for me for dialysis. It's pretty much the same concept. They accept with needles instead of a catheter. They stick me and I just sit there for 4 hours and the blood goes out and the clean blood comes back in. I've had a lot of issues with the fistula, but I would
mhm.
definitely.
And I know it does take a lot of trial and error. Everyone's not the same. It affects someone
Right,
different. Each person's body may reject, whereas someone else, this method may be perfect for them,
right,
and so I definitely remember it being a lot of trial and error for you, but over
definitely.
time it gets better once you learn what's best for you and your body. Your team of doctors and nurses get to know you better and kind of build rapport and know, what's best for you.
So it's definitely been a lot of trial and error for me, especially with my access sites. But I would definitely say now that I've one learned how to advocate for myself and for my body
Hmm.
and know who to stick me, who not to stick me to avoid those situations that I've been put in previously. It's definitely you just definitely need to learn how to say no.
Hmm.
No, I don't want you. No, I don't care how you feel, but this is me. This is my body. I'm the one who's going to end up in the hospital if anything goes bad, not you. So definitely, definitely, definitely learning how to advocate for yourself in those particular positions in dialysis when you're doing hemodialysis.
Yeah, I love
Have
that.
any have there been any like negative outcomes that have happened with dialysis, or have there been any side effects that you've had to deal with dialysis?
Yeah, I've come home thrown up after dialysis treatments.
Mm,
I've had high blood pressure, so they couldn't give me treatment. Too high of a blood pressure, they couldn't give me treatment. A lot of different things where, they can not give you treatment or they'll have to send you to the ER to get checked out. If you have a
mm,
fever, you can't go to dialysis. If you have
mm,
this, they'll send you to the ER. If you tell them
mm.
your chest hurts, they'll stop treatment and call EMS and send you to the ER. So it's a lot of different things that
So
I've
it seems
experienced in
like,
the 5 years.
yeah, that's crazy. So it seems like it's like a very tedious process, like
Definitely.
it's like a almost, we can't do anything, like nothing can be
Mhm,
wrong. Like you have to be in
mhm.
perfect condition for us to do
Yeah,
dialysis,
for
which is
sure.
which I
Mhm,
can
Yeah.
understand that with blood entering and leaving your body and different things like
mhm.
that. So anything could go wrong at the spear of any moment. So I could
Oh,
see that, and I
absolutely.
could
Yeah.
see, how things can kind of flip
Yeah.
in like
Mhm,
such a drastic way, in just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
mhm.
I've seen so much stuff happen, crazy stuff happen. I've seen needles come out of somebody's arm during treatment. I've
Wow,
seen people pass out from treatment.
wow.
It's very scary, but
Mhm,
you know, as long as you're doing what you need to do and as long as you're abiding by the rules set in place through the dialysis center,
Yeah.
everything would be okay.
Hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super good. Well, I think like you've done such an awesome job really explaining, what lupus is, how people can understand the signs and symptoms. And again, the signs and symptoms that you may have experienced, everyone won't experience those same symptoms, but it's also
Right.
very important for people to be aware of, what to kind of look out for, especially when it comes to lupus, especially, because it's such an underrated disease, I guess you could say. I mean, a lot of
Right.
people may not be aware that it could be lupus, and it's not very talked about,
Common.
especially common, exactly, and talked about,
Right.
especially in the African American community, and then the African American women, we have some of the highest statistics. So I'm kind of hearing it in firsthand from your experience exactly what lupus is, and everyone that has been through it is very, very, very important. Um, Whenever advocating and doing lupus awareness, because somebody may have it and they just might not know, or they may not know how to get
Mhm.
tested, or what signs to look for, or
Yeah.
even what the next step would look like.
And a lot of
So
times too, it feels really good hearing it from someone who actually has it and has been walking through that
mhm,
journey than it is to hear from someone who's never experienced it before. A lot of times these doctors are telling you things and oh, it's going to be okay, but what does that look like because you haven't walked through that, and
Right.
so hearing someone else's journey and knowing that okay, if this person did it, then I can do it. And just being stronger than.
and so with that, I think that we can end this in just knowing that becoming educated, knowledge is power, right? So just knowing and
Mm-hmm.
being knowledgeable about the different diseases, which is why we're doing this, is to kind of help other people become educated about, the different diseases and different things that are common,
Yeah.
and what
Absolutely.
people can learn about these diseases and how they know that it could affect their body, but also what are some signs to look out for if this is something that, could be questionable.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, for lupus specifically as well, I remember Jay when you were first diagnosed, um, there's not much advocacy and awareness out there. And so
mhm,
trying to research things, okay, what does this mean and what it's gonna look like was a little difficult because there wasn't much out there, especially from people that experience firsthand or organizations and things like that. So
Right.
I definitely think that, I love this segment that Words with Chat started so that we can kind of put it out there and spread awareness about the signs and triggers and things that come with it.
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. If you want to get tested to be a living donor, you can do that by going to livingdonortemple.org. It is understood that I believe Jay is looking for a donor for her lupus journey, and I think that's just the kind of last end piece to her lupus journey. To kind of bridge the gap between her dialysis and kind of actually having a lasting treatment, right? And so having a kidney donor would help her come off of dialysis and equate to
Mm-hmm.
fully being treated. So if you're interested in being a living donor, you can do that, and you can sign up, and go through the whole process by visiting livingdonortemple.org. And then you can also like, comment, and share this video, and follow Words with Chas for more information on how to be involved with anything lupus. Thank you so much for joining us and co-hosting with me, Nye and Jay. This has been a wonderful time. Was there any last remarks that you wanted to say when it comes to lupus and what it is, and for those people who may need to hear a word?
Lean on your support system. They're there for you. Don't cast them out. They'll always be there for you, even if you don't feel like wanting to talk to them. Always having somebody to talk to is really, really important to one, our mental health, to our health in general. Um, and yeah, just don't give up in your fight. You have a world of support out there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we'll be back with episode 2 of I'm Stronger Than, and we'll be talking about and navigating the healthcare system. And then navigating what my mental health looks like with lupus. This is very important. Again, navigating lupus and how it affects your body, how it affects your mental health. Tune in for episode 2, and we will be back with you. Words with Chas. I'm Stronger Than. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.